Hello and welcome to Times Now. Thank you very much for speaking with me, Commerce and Industries Minister, Mr. Piyush Goyal, also Consumer Affairs. And Mr. Piyush Goyal, it's a heartening moment for India when the Delhi Declaration comes with 100% consensus, which was the bottom line set by the Prime Minister. How ecstatic is the Prime Minister to get this 100% consensus without a footnote, without any addendums, without any dissent coming in? You must have spoken to him. Please be a fly on the wall for us and tell us just what does he feel about the outcomes?
I think the Prime Minister of India is a man full of confidence. And he had the courage of conviction to believe that India's leadership will succeed. And he has demonstrated with this very, very phenomenal, successful G20 presidency that he truly is a world leader, somebody all sides can trust, somebody that the world looks up to resolve very complex problems that the world is facing today.
Mr. Piyush Goyal, many people said before the G20 summit that with the absence of the Chinese President Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, it didn't seem like it was going towards a consensus or even a Delhi declaration. How did the Prime Minister actually get over both of these leaders' absence and still hammer out an agreement and a declaration that was acceptable to both Russia and China?
Well, we would have liked them to come, but it's not as if it's the first time that heads of state or heads of government haven't attended G20 summit. Of course, we had the Russian foreign minister and we had the Chinese prime minister actively participating in all the sessions. Their Sherpa, Svetlana, was a very seasoned lady, 10 years or more she's been a Sherpa for Russia, was very much there. And the channels of communication are always open. Prime Minister Modi, along with all his other very, very complex tasks as a leader of the G20 presidency that India was proudly hosting, was also able to give very strong signals and messages amongst various countries with different viewpoints. I truly think that that's a measure of the trust that he has earned over the years. The fact that different countries, different leaders recognize that he's a leader who cares for the world, who cares for humanity, who cares for all of the different people from around the world. That trust is what differentiates him from others.
Mr. Piyush Goyal, let me just read out some of the world headlines that have come out. CNBC says G20 nations soften Russia condemnation to reach Delhi summit compromise, draw Ukraine's ire. CNN says G20 stops short of condemning Russia's invasion of Ukraine in a joint declaration. BBC says G20 laments war in Ukraine but avoids blaming Russia. Some of these headlines, would they disturb you or would they look at the complex reality of geopolitical relations and the wonderful way in which India has balanced them?
I think these are reflective of the local sentiment, the local politics of different countries, while at the same time, a true leader has to balance many interests. And I think all the leaders of the different countries who are members or were invited to the G20 have demonstrated tremendous maturity and sagacity to come to an agreed position while maintaining their national positions on this very complex subject. They have also accommodated the reality that G20 is a grouping of diverse viewpoints. I think we all recognize, all member countries recognize the importance of multilateral organizations, the importance of dialogue, diplomacy, and discussion to find solutions rather than only worry about the form of or the content of a statement. I think the collective spirit of G20 was that we demonstrate to the world that multilateralism is live and kicking, that countries around the world can get together to find solutions to the problems before the world. I think this is a very big signal to the world that we are looking for solutions, not only talking about the problems.
Well, Mr. Piyush Goyal, there's one paragraph, I think paragraph number 12 in the declaration, which says, we call on all states to uphold the principles of international law, including territorial integrity and sovereignty, international humanitarian law, and multilateral system and safeguards of peace and stability. It also talks about the sustainable and transparent multilateral trading system with WTO at its core. Are these messages really meant for China, especially as India faces many challenges from China, both on the trade as well as on the geopolitical side?
Navika ji, this is a consensus document. So I don't think there is any message for a country or another country. I think the message is for all of the world that we have to, in this multipolar world, work towards earning each other's friendship and trust. And therefore, it's important to respect sovereignty, respect honest, transparent trading systems, respect the rules-based trade that the WTO stands for. In a manner of speaking, this G20 has given out a loud call for the whole world to recognize that the future belongs to all, and everybody will have to contribute to making it a safer, better future, a more inclusive future for the world, and also respect sustainability, respect the fact that we have the sustainable development goals to meet, respect the fact that trade and economic growth is important, particularly for less developed and developing countries, so that the people of these countries also have a better and brighter future. In a way, I think it's a glorious beginning to the Amrit Kal that India has entered into. It lays the foundation of India's Amrit Kal and truly shows the world that the next 25 years, how India will lead the global effort to improve and get a better deal for the global south, for the less developed and developing countries.
Well, let me also ask you the importance of the India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor. On the face of it, the MOU seems like a huge deal in terms of trade, but it also seems to carry a bit of the geopolitical message as being a counter to the China's Belt and Road Initiative. How would you look at this initiative, and how does India benefit from it, and what's the timeline we are looking at?
I'm not so much concerned about what other people and their initiatives have done, while of course gradually the world is recognizing that a lot of that initiative launched by China was about expanding their sphere of influence. It had a geopolitical dimension more than economic welfareism. Whereas the corridor that has been initiated during this meeting has a much greater strategic significance, because it's talking about connecting the East and the West. It's talking about opening up opportunities for countries who are trusted partners, countries who trust each other, countries who would like to expand trade, and therefore much more affordable logistics will certainly help. The fact that we can live in an interconnected world where even with the use of railroad, we can move materials all the way from east to west. The fact that we can lay cables for electricity, for example, or digital cables, we can improve digital connectivity across these geographies. The fact that we can also at some stage pipe green hydrogen to move across these regions. All of these are demonstrative of huge potential, which will be economically good for the people, particularly of the less developed countries. India stands to benefit very significantly from any such initiative, as will some of our neighbors like Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, many countries in the Middle East and East European countries. So it's a very inclusive alliance. It's a very inclusive thought process. It'll improve efficiencies, reduce costs, enhance economic activity and unity, create jobs in a big way, work opportunities for our young boys and girls, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, because railroad is a much more efficient way of moving goods long distance. All in all, it's a transformative integration of Asia, Europe, and the Middle East.
Mr. Piyush Goyal, let me ask you, India has demonstrated its principle of inclusivity and democratization of development. Our digital infrastructure has got a huge round of applause from across the world. And we've also demonstrated, despite being in the development stage in our economy, despite having a large population, that still has to get the fruits of development going. We've been the voice of the African Union. We've been the voice of the Global South. And, the African Union head actually had tears in his eyes because he thought there would be a debate before getting the African Union in. But Prime Minister Modi's behind-the-scenes work got them in the first part of the summit itself. Where do you think India is going on from here on the global stage?
I think it's a matter of great pride for all of us that our brothers and sisters of Africa, through the African Union, will now have a voice on the high table, will be a part of the G20. Truly a matter of great satisfaction and pride, both for Prime Minister Narendra Modi and for 140 crore Indians, all of whom believe that we stand for global good, we stand for a better future for all of humanity. And I think it's a great achievement. It truly is testimony to Prime Minister Modi's increasing confidence that he has earned of world leaders and the trust of the world in India and its leadership. I think apart from the big achievement on Africa becoming a part of the G20, you rightly mentioned that our digital infrastructure, particularly our digital public infrastructure, has showcased how technology can impact human lives and human development. In fact, India has benefited significantly from minimum government, maximum governance out of our digital forays. This increased access to technology has helped create more transparent economic systems, has helped reach the benefits of welfare and government actions, particularly affirmative actions to support the poor, to support the less privileged sections of society. I think digital infrastructure that India has created has been a big enabler to democratize and take the fruits of development to the last man at the bottom of the pyramid. We believe that this infrastructure can help both developing countries and the developed world, and will also help bridge the digital divide between the haves and the have-nots.
And last but not the least, how would you comment on the politics, domestic politics that's been brewing all the time while the G20 summit has been on in 2 days? We haven't focused much on it, but do you think it's time to send a message to the opposition?
I think it's really irrelevant. The people of India have seen through the opposition's efforts to derail a very successful presidency that India has run for the last 10 months. I think the people of India today come from a position of confidence, from a position of achievement. And in this, only thing I can say is Angur Khatte hai. The opposition is bereft of any agenda, bereft of any program. They don't have anything to offer. their own leader is sitting in some European city. Rather than that, if you would have been here partaking on the glory, India's moment under the sun and possibly now beyond. I think this was a moment for everybody to rejoice. This was a moment to rise above petty politics and give a message to the country that we may have our differences in politics, but when it's national interest, we all stand for nation first. Sadly, those who for generations have believed in family first can never understand what it is like to stand up for the nation, stand up for Bharat.
On a very humorous note, if Mr. Rahul Gandhi was in India, would you have invited him? Because you didn't invite the leader of opposition, Mr. Kharge.
Well, I think he has to be active, he has to be available to even consider the request. That would have been decided based on the constitutional positions that are held and the people who were invited. So we had many chief ministers invited from several states, including all the opposition states. So I think it's not important whether an individual is there or not there. What is important is the achievement of the nation. And I'm sure the 140 crore Indians were not all there in at the Bharat Mandapam during the Leaders Summit. But every one of the 140 crore Indians in this country today feel deeply connected thanks to Prime Minister Modi's idea of taking G20 to over 60 cities, have more than 200 meetings. Today, even in the remotest corners and the villages of India, people recognize the G20 presidency of India. People are appreciative of the growing strength and our position in world economics, world geopolitics. And I think that's a matter of pride, irrespective of whether you are in the room or you are anywhere, not only in India, but in the whole world, that every Indian today is basking in.
Absolutely. And India and Bharat, two sides of the same coin, but Bharat truly makes a statement on the world stage. Thank you very much, Mr. Piyush Goyal, for joining me on this broadcast. We hope you'll spare more time after your bilateral meeting with the Saudi head of state who is in India, and we can get more details on that and other free trade agreements when you have more time. Thank you very much for joining me.